Okay, and we'll share this recording when this is when we're finished and once we have the recording. All right, so Susan, thank you for joining us. I know we have a few people from Camden.
Jake, I'm here. Margot Venable is here. Carol McCormick is here, and Helen Troxel is here.
President Borden, thank you so much, and thank you for you and your team being with us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
And Jake, I see President Stout. He's here from Brookdale. We just did introductions to Brookdale, but President, good to see you.
Afternoon. Good to see you.
All right. Thanks for joining us, President Stout. Okay, let's see. Essex, who's online? I think Elvie's on. Hi, Elvie.
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us, Elvie.
Thank you.
Anybody on from Hudson?
Hi, yes, I'm from Hudson, Lori Margolin, Associate Vice President for Continuing Education and Workforce Development. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Lori. We appreciate it. Anybody on from Mercer? Anybody on from Middlesex? How about CCM, County College of Morris? Okay, how about Ocean? I see an Ocean logo. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina Oposki, Assistant Director of Work Readiness, and also Caitlin Everett is also on. She's the Director of WPE.
Great, thank you.
Hello.
And Passaic.
Good afternoon, Janet Albrecht and Doug Ramirez of Continuing Education at Passaic.
Hi, Janet. Hi, Doug. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Raritan Valley. From RVCC. No. About the RCBC, Rowan College at Burlington.
Hi, good afternoon. Linda Bobo, Workforce Development at RCBC.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks for joining us. RCSJ, Rowan College, South Jersey. And how about Salem? Anybody on from Salem? No. Sussex, anybody on from Sussex? Okay. And I think we have at least one person from Union. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, it's Lisa.
Lisa. And Warren.
Hi there, Jake. It's Eve from Warren County College.
Hi, Eve. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Anyone jump on that we did not call, didn't get a chance to introduce yourself?
And we are joined, Jake and everybody else, by our chairman, Phil Infante from Warren. So Phil, good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Same here, Aaron. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being a part of this.
Also, I'm Kathy Williams from William Patterson, Dr. Ranjan, and for her, she could not make it today. We're from William Patterson University.
Great. Thank you so much for joining. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And as I'm attempting to do this without disconnecting everything, I'd like to just turn it over to the Council President, Aaron Fichtner, for some opening remarks. And then we're going to do a brief presentation. Then we want to hear from all of you. But first, Aaron.
So thanks, Jake. And it's good to see everybody on this call from all over the state. As you all know, the SNAP Employment and Training Program is one of the state's more important programs for helping people on public assistance get the skills and education they need to have family supporting wages and to eventually transition off of public benefits. It's a program that's implemented in partnership between the Department of Human Services that receives the funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and then sends the E&T money to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, who implements the E&T program. Just an important point to make that it's really a partnership between Human Services and the Labor Department. And then, as you probably know, the lion's share of SNAP E&T dollars in New Jersey then goes from the Labor Department to local workforce development boards, and they are then implementing SNAP E&T programs in partnership with county boards of social services. So really there are 4 entities involved in the implementation of this program, and local workforce boards then have a lot of leeway in how they implement the program. So we are really here today to talk about a number of things. One is that given our mission and our work, and now with the advent of the Community College Opportunity Program being permanent, we wanted to have a fresh discussion in light of this ACCT project about what we are currently doing as community colleges in the SNAP ENT program, and more importantly, what we can do to expand our role in helping to make sure that more people are on a path to self-sufficiency and to education. And so we really are anxious and excited to have this conversation with all of you. Our hope is not only to have this inform a possible participation of our state in the ACCT project, which Jake will talk about in a minute, but also to give us some ideas that will allow us as a council to go to the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development and to the Department of Human Services with some concrete and tangible, innovative ideas for how community colleges can play a bigger and more important role. I think we all agree, since we're all in the community college and education space, that really the best path to self-sufficiency for individuals is the earning of credentials and degrees that help people get a job and move up the career ladder. And so I think we'd all agree that community colleges do and should even more so in the future play a critical role in helping people who are receiving SNAP benefits get on that path. So really want to do a couple things today is to hear from all of you about what you're currently doing, get some ideas on what more we could do in partnership with the state, and then to think about how we might, as community colleges, play a role at some point in the future as third-party providers in the SNAP ENT program world. There are a lot of opportunities here, I think, particularly as we think about paths between non-credit and credit programs, as we think about CCOG as a state-funded program now permanent in state law for people in low-income households and moderate income households. So really just looking forward to a really interesting discussion with all of you. But again, the goal here is to really come up with some concrete ideas that we can take to state government that would expand the role of community colleges in this important program. As Jake will tell you more about, ACCT with the Federal Department of Agriculture is launching a nationwide SNAP ENT pilot program. They're looking for states to participate in this program. We've expressed very enthusiastically our desire to participate in this program. And now ACCT is in discussions with the Department of Agriculture and the leadership in state government here in New Jersey to make sure that all of this comes together with us participating in that project. So with that introduction, I'll turn it back to Jake, who will talk a little bit about what we've learned from our early participation in this ACCT effort, and then we'll have an open discussion of where we go from here. So thank you all. Good to see people from all over the state in this important conversation. Jake, back to you.
Aaron, thank you so much. And just before I begin, I want to make sure everybody can see my screen clearly okay. I take it it's a yes. I'm not getting any objection. So, okay. So all states are required to operate some form of SNAP ENT programs, and they have to submit an annual ENT plan with SNAP. USDA provides over $350 million to states to operate SNAP employment and training. And SNAP ENT in 2018, FY 2018, served just under 458,000 participants nationwide. And there's a lot of flexibility in these ENT programs, as all of you may know. Some of this may look a little familiar. We borrowed some of this content from the Association of Community College Trustees, who held a webinar last week. So with the 50/50 program, you've got multiple partners involved. You've got USDA, you've got the state, and then you've got these third-party providers. And what has started to surface, both from ACCT and in my work with the National Student Success Centers Network, is that there are more and more states whose community colleges are becoming third-party SNAP ENT providers directly working with their states. And that started to get our gears rolling as to, well, what's going on here in New Jersey, and how can we build on it, and what can we take to state government to strengthen our role to better serve the people, as Aaron so eloquently pointed out earlier. Now, as far as folks who are eligible for SNAP ENT, folks have to be receiving SNAP the month they participate in the training component. They cannot be receiving TANF, and they have to be able to work upon completion of the program. There are no participation time limits, and states can operate mandatory or voluntary programs. This chart really lays out the different roles that providers could play. Nationally, we're starting to see more and more community colleges in this role, the third party line, but there are some, Oregon is one, where they have a whole consortium of folks, a whole consortium of community colleges that are serving as a primary intermediary with SNAP ENT. In this 100% program where they're the lead intermediary, there are many things that could be covered by SNAP ENT funds: staffing, planning, implementation, operations, direct program expenses, so tuition and fees, case management, career navigation, job development, so on and so forth. And in the 50% funds model, it can cover both administrative costs and participant costs, and it's very flexible. So, for example, in a 50-50 SNAP ENT model, a college could be reimbursed 50% of the costs, or federally, 50% of the costs federally would be covered of that student's education who receives SNAP if participating in SNAP ENT as a third-party provider. And that's where we're starting to see a lot of growth. Washington, Oregon, as I mentioned, and a few others. Let's see. So ACCT is starting this project funded by Food and Nutrition Services. It's really to aim to increase understanding of and scale up SNAP ENT services. ACCT is partnering with the American Public Human Services Association, National Community Action Partnership to do this. And the goal is to engage a cohort of community colleges to participate in SNAP ENT training and technical assistance, and develop SNAP ENT related resources and best practices for the community college sector as a whole. Our initial interest in this when ACCT reached out to us was that, if we were able to participate in this as a state, knowing the landscape that it is here in New Jersey, initially we'd like to work with state government partners to strengthen the role that community colleges play in SNAP ENT. So I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron at this point to help guide us in this discussion. We have 3 primary discussion questions here, but more could come from it in our time together today. What are we currently doing? We'd like to get a sense from all of you how you're utilizing SNAP ENT. What more could we be doing in our current structure, and what are our thoughts around the table? I would say not just on serving as third-party providers, but any other ideas you might have as it relates to SNAP ENT. Maybe there are some programs and practices you might have at your institution, and you might have thought, hey, if we could scale this up statewide, we could really make a significant difference in the lives of folks who are on SNAP. So, Aaron, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Jake. So, any questions about the ACCT project or about the third-party provider idea? Let's maybe start with that and see if there are any questions that anybody has before we get into what are we currently doing in the SNAP ENT space. Any questions? I don't see any hands.
No, I don't see any either.
Okay, so why don't we start with what are we currently doing in the SNAP ENT program? I know a number of the colleges responded to an email that we sent out a couple of weeks ago about some of the work you're doing at local workforce boards, but why don't we go around, and I see Sherwood Taylor has joined us from Atlantic Cape Community College. There may have been some late entrants also coming in, but let's start with, anyone want to start with what you're currently doing in SNAP ENT and what you think we all could learn from your experiences?
Aaron, this is Eve from Warren County College. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I wanted to let you know that pretty much we've had a long-standing, strong partnership with the One Stop in our local Board of Social Services, our task division. Since we're a smaller county, we've basically been just getting referrals from the One Stop or TAS for, based upon the student's individual needs, like what type of non-credit job training program that student is interested in. So they come in just like an individual, WIOA student, basically looking for, training. So in our county, that's what we have been doing.
And so what kind of services, do you normally provide? It's driven by the needs of the student and the individual.
That's correct. Basically, they go through whatever assessment they go through with their agency. And then we talk with the student individually to make sure that it's a good match for the type of training that they're looking for. Now, there was a time many years ago through ARA funding that I managed a program where the student, it was actually called AWEP, and it was for SNAP recipients, which, at that time it was called food stamps. They would be in a CWEP experience part of the time, and then the other part of the time they would be in training, non-credit training at that time. So that was an older program where they provided services to SNAP participants.
Great. Thanks, Eve. Thanks for sharing your work in Warren.
Thank you.
Erin, this is Margot Venable from Camden County College.
Hey, Margot.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
We also serve SNAP students through our CWEP program. There are about little over 100 participants in that CWEP program. 75% of them are receiving SNAP benefits. And so this past year during the pandemic, they went to this volunteer participation on the part of the participants. So imagine that was difficult to engage the students and to come in for training. They had all types of issues they were dealing with. Homelessness, food insecurity was huge. And so we felt it important to have weekly wellness visits with the students online, of course. In fact, we entitled our program RISE CWEP. And so RISE stood for Rebuild Healthy Lives, Impart Strategies for Shopping and Budgeting, Strengthen Family Ties, while providing healthy choices, parenting, homeschooling platforms, and educate, connecting with educators, nutritionists, community advisors for physical and nutritional counsel. Because as you can imagine, parents have to be healthy in order for their kids to be healthy. So it was this whole, human mental health dynamic going on. People were stressed, depressed. So we had to deal with those issues first before we can tackle providing the training, the work experience portion of that. And we were very successful in getting them to voluntarily participate. So we would have monthly workshops on healthy eating, wellness training, how to shop, right? So you get your SNAP benefits once a month, and if you don't budget them wisely, use them wisely, you'll run out of SNAP benefits before you run out of the month, right? So we felt it important to talk to them about how do you budget and make those food resources last longer, as well as connecting them with food banks and resources within the community. We also had forums, discussion forums, where we would bring in mental health professionals to address any issues, any concerns, any stressors that those participants might be facing. And it worked well. We even got to the point where it was student-led. So they actually led the discussions about, what was troubling them during this pandemic. How do you survive it? How do you homeschool? Parents were not used to having their children home all day, every day, and providing a homeschool experience for them. We also had a virtual series on Get Your Mind Right, because to, again, address those mental health concerns. We engaged Wawa, ShopRite, some of those larger grocers in terms of providing virtual discussions related to health and food preparation and how you stretch food and how do you get creative in terms of your menus? And also to talk about parenting. Right? So parenting can be difficult, and then when you have the additional stressors of COVID that we just went through last year, but we found it very rewarding and impactful for the students to be engaged and empowered through this process, and for us to guide them through it. And so that's what's worked very well for us here at Camden.
Wow, that's really an impressive array of services that you provided to people, and to change your approach during the pandemic as a result of the challenges that we're in and everyone is facing. Margo, thank you for sharing that. Who wants to go next? Talk about LB.
Yeah, sure.
LB.
So we've had a lot of experience at Essex dealing with this. At one point, the numbers before COVID had been something like 35,000 people on some kind of welfare, in the county of Essex. And so through the years, there was a huge attempt to reduce those numbers, right? And they had done a pretty decent job prior to COVID. We were hearing that the numbers were getting more around 3,500 people on some of these benefits, right? So big reductions. We did AWEP, same way as was mentioned before, CWEP as well. And then we also offered other training, if they were approved and made it through AWEP, but weren't directly placed into a job, we could do training. So we've put them into office skills training, allied health, even the CNAs, things like that, if they were able to do it. And just so that's it. Prior to this, the college used to get huge amounts of, like you're talking about $1 million contract to serve thousands of people that would come through us in groups of about 100 every week. And we would have these 4-week sort of concierge service through 4 weeks. And then if they made it through that, then they could be funneled into other things. Now, under the pandemic, when we were meeting with some of our colleagues at the WIB, they basically were not mandated to be in any activity, right? Because of everything that was going on. We're hearing that it may be lifted as of July, and we probably see some more coming, but we've not received any information from the county to begin training in some of those. We currently do have a contract with the county to serve some of the welfare as well as unemployed into CNAs and into some of the position, in the training programs that we offer right now. So we've done originally the 4 weeks, as I remember, was getting resumes ready, interview skills, assessing whether they're ready to really go to work or if they needed additional skills, and looking at whether the additional skills included a degree program or something, and just funneling people through, to see where we could play, we could either, put them in an 8-week program, a 12-week program, whatever was available to turn them around quickly. So I'm thinking that given our previous experience, given the numbers that at one point were over 80,000 again here in Essex County, that at some point that we're going to probably be, they're going to come back to us for some of this in the near future as things change and we become, more sort of back to some normalcy. But we did continue a lot of the things that we were doing with the current participants online as much as we could. So that's
great. Thank you. Thank you, LB. Appreciate that update. Who else wants to give a short update on what they're doing before we start talking about where we go from here?
I will.
Lisa.
I'm okay. There we go. Yeah, thanks. We have done over the years was a long program for SNAP recipients, but it was through WFNJ. So folks would come through the Workforce New Jersey program. So most of the candidates were adults, but then there were also some folks receiving SNAP general assistance. The way our program was structured is we really didn't get that many. I mean, it's always been we'll accept the referrals and put them into an existing program, but how they were referred from the county, I think, was always a challenge, and everything was benchmark based. So they could stay with us, for up to 3 months, I believe. And we only, we've reduced the program because we used to do just the CWEPs or just the workplace sites. But now we only do the CWEP if the student is also enrolled in an educational activity. So that significantly reduced our numbers because there was a lot more interest in getting people placed at a CWEP site and then managing that. But we kind of got out of that business because we weren't providing any direct services. We were just providing attendance, basically. And so now, again, because of the pandemic, we've got no referrals. And so we still have a WFNJ contract. Again, it's all benchmark based, participant based, but we have no referrals. Not sure where we're going to go for next fiscal year of what's going to come out through the county. And I think it's important just to also identify, and maybe some of the other folks can identify too, the challenges that we've had is because it is an open entry. I mean, it's a continual flow of students. And so it's often restrictive as to what programs they can participate in, because you can't come in, 6 weeks into like a patient care technician program.
Yeah.
And it's something to do with the timing. Like once they get referred, they have to come over immediately and be in a program like immediately that day or the next day. And so, we would tend to put to place individuals in our literacy programs, our basic skills programs, and our ESL programs.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges of the program, Lisa, has been, you can attest to this, is that it's been structured at the state level as a program to help people meet their work requirements more than it's been a program about economic mobility.
Right.
So
and
that's probably the timing you're referring to, is people need to get their work requirements done. And
that was a big conversation we had with our county. I mean, they weren't happy with us when we said, hey, we're just not in that business of placing people at nonprofits and track down their attendance. I mean, that just is, we're a college, we're an educational institution.
so I want to hear from a couple of others about, your experiences, and I want to turn to what really we should be doing or could do, or what could we propose to the state. So any couple other updates from folks, and then let's turn to this discussion of where do we go from here.
And Aaron, can I just add something to Lisa's comment? Because I found that so true, in that the participants were actually sanctioned if they didn't show up or if they didn't attend the work site. So how do you threaten people with food, right? So you may have a childcare issue. I just don't understand that whole thinking, from the state in that regard. So that's challenging.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is driven by federal regulations, and some of that's driven by what state policy has been. And some of this may require the state to change their SNAP E&T plan, and perhaps even change some of the laws as it relates to WFNJ, which is really a vestige of welfare reform, right? I mean, we're still, I think, have not made that pivot from the old way of thinking that we needed to just make people prove that they needed these benefits to a focus on how do you get economic mobility. And
yeah, it just seems so punitive, and it shouldn't be that way.
And I think there's an opportunity here, starting in this conversation, to be a positive influence on state policy as it relates to WFNJ in particular, and SNAP E&T, and more relevant to this conversation.
Thank you.
This is Janet from Passaic. Our experience at Passaic reflects what others have spoken about. We have a close relationship with our One Stop. They're co-located on our campus. Something I'll talk about that's a little different that hasn't been mentioned. We had a pilot program through the DOL for the SNAP recipients in 2016 and 2017. and it was called the Skills Enhancement Program. It had 3 components. We included online learning, which seems present now, given our current situation. And some of the activities we chose were based on our TAC 3 program. So it was online learning, resiliency competencies, and we used Career Connection, the website, to help with finding jobs, resumes, things like that. We brought in the community for things like Dress for Success, a local food pantry, city gardens, things like that. Doug was actually an instructor on the project, and he has also been an instructor or a coordinator, I should say, for our Workforce New Jersey program. So he has a lot of experience working with our students, which is why he joined us today.
Yeah, the program was successful. As far as the numbers were concerned, we were able to retain 60% of the population, which all of you know that is a very difficult population to work with. Well, not difficult, but challenging. And about 49-50% of the population went on to different things like training programs, working, CWEB programs, like high school, and also transition into the college. Different programs from the college, and a couple of them to the military. One of the most difficult things was to do follow-ups with them because they were not reachable. And about 27% of the population were not working. And those are the numbers that we need to work with. And the other one is like about 25-26% of the population you couldn't reach. And it was successful because within a month, actually, we had them for 5 weeks. And within that time, they were actually able to progress at least in reading and writing 1 grade level up, which is very, very impressive. Math was not the improvement was not, the game was not that great. It was about 0.4.5%. But the other stuff that they were doing resiliency, critical thinking skills, behavior modification, all that stuff. We saw a lot of improvement. A lot of them used to come because the program started at 9 o'clock in the morning. So at the beginning, the first week, they would be here by 9:20, 9:25. With the next couple of weeks, all those things were changing. In addition to that, we were doing instruction. We were bringing people from different places and different resources. We presented to them, and by the end of the 5 weeks, many of them they had a different mindset, and that's what the program should be about. In terms of referrals, a lot of times they didn't explain to them why they were coming and how long they were going to be here for. And when we got them, they really they gave us a hard time the first couple of weeks, especially we had 9 cohorts, so the first couple of cohorts were a little bit difficult to deal with. So that's something that they should be explained to them. That you're going to this program, and it's going to be for a certain amount of hours or whatever, for a certain amount of time. That's something that needs to be really worked on, so people know exactly where they're going to avoid those situations. So that's pretty much my update.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you all for all of your updates on what you're currently doing and some reflection. I'd like to then kind of pivot, and I'll turn it back to Jake to where we go from here. But obviously, if you have other updates and haven't had a chance to speak, please be willing to share what you're doing. But before we do that, I just wanted to see if Presidents Borden or Stout or our Chairman Phil Linfante had any thoughts before we get into this discussion of kind of where do we go from here with this program. Just open the floor to the 3 of them, and then I'll turn it back to Jake.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for opening up the opportunity for us to speak a little bit. I'm very impressed with what I'm hearing is happening already around the state. Brookdale is here to learn really from you, because this isn't really, we haven't been doing a ton of work around SNAP. So I'm personally very impressed, and I know I'm speaking for Susan as well, who's here from Brookdale, impressed by what we hear is happening already, and excited to hear about what we might be able to do in the future. Thanks, Aaron.
Great, thanks, President. Chairman Linfante, President Borden, any reflections before we talk about what comes next?
Okay, Dr. Borden, I'll go last.
Hold on. You're looking for me to say something, Aaron? I'm on the phone with an attorney right now. I'll be with you in a minute.
Okay, so back to you, Phil.
Aaron, look, I've said right along, us getting involved in as many things in the community as possible, trying to help individuals, especially those in this type of situation, we're the best fit for this. We have to find a way to make this work. I know it's been challenging working with the government concerning SNAP funds, but this is something that has been talked about for years, and I give credit to everyone that's working hard to make it more beneficial to the individual. So I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Chairman. So Jake, back to you.
Thanks, Aaron. So I get a sense from what we've heard today so far is that primarily a lot of the ways that you've been able to help students primarily on the non-credit side of the house. So one of the things we wanted to talk with all of you about is what more could we be doing in the current landscape? Some ideas. Could we be leveraging CCOG in some way? Are there ideas to provide wraparound support services through the CCOG support grants we already get and other things we already have on our campuses? Lisa, you made a very good point that it's so limited as to what programs students can be placed into because of the start time, stop time, and when they come to see us. Is there a way we could phrase that in a certain way when in taking that as a recommendation to DHS to try to open that up a little bit? So we'd like to hear from all of you. What more could we be doing? What should we be doing right now in our current structure that would be beneficial to all of us and all of the constituents that we serve who receive SNAP?
It's always hard to find the right person to start, but
So I don't have an answer to your direct question, but since we don't really have, we don't work with SNAP EMT recipients, I think it would be helpful to have maybe like a template or basic services that seem to work given all the rules around this among the colleges. So for those of us who are looking to start or restart or revise, kind of what would be a successful package? What fits this? And then, then we could obviously build on that to a more robust program, but it would be helpful, coming from another point of view to kind of see what works. And then we could approach our local board and say, look, this is something that's successful elsewhere. We can do this for you in Hudson County.
Yeah, I agree with Lori. And it was great to hear everyone say what they've offered students in the past or even currently. And I'm taking feverish notes, but almost like a menu of services that others have provided successfully to SNAP ENT participants would be helpful for us. Similar to Janet, the last time we have really been referred, a lot of SNAP participants have been through our TACT grant. So TACT 4, we were in round 4 in Ocean. So that ended in 2018 for us, and same for Workforce New Jersey. It's been a number of years for us. And so I think, knowing that some larger federal grants are right around the corner, I believe, assuming that we might be able to really increase the number of SNAP participants that we're working with soon, I think it's great to lay the ground rules now, I guess, as a consortium and see where we want to go with this and be a little bit more structured.
This is Janet again. I think information about demographics and data, as Doug will tell you, what we've learned is the students are so different. It's such a varied, background. So knowing what they're looking for and what we're all talking about now is when we come out of the pandemic, it will be a whole different group of people looking for workforce development and skills building. I mean, our whole world has changed. What's in demand has changed. So knowing something about the demographics and the data would help us.
So I guess my 2 cents is this: it's always seemed in the past that the objective of the students who are receiving SNAP, because they've come under Work First New Jersey, the objective is that they become employed. And that's kind of always been the focus, is that they're to become employed. And I believe, I'm not going outside of the realm here, is these are some of our most difficult students to serve. So it's not as if we can just have them come in and they come in branded as a SNAP ENT recipient, and that's how they get funded, and then they get put into a regular program. The resources required to manage the individuals, with the attendance requirements, with the personal issues that they're dealing with, and the individual issues that they're dealing with, is really extensive. And I don't want that to get lost, is that the level of resources that are required to work with these individuals needs to be dedicated and needs to be consistent. It's not just like getting, I don't know, sometimes we'll get a TRA student who may be in a different situation that can fit into an existing program. Not all of these students can, because of their requirements. And then also, again, technology is an issue. That's it.
I think during the intake process, students or participants should be grouped. Do you want to go to a high school program? Do you want to go into a computer program? That kind of thing, because everybody's thrown into a program and they don't want to do that. Furthermore, I think now that we have becoming used to the online components, I think there's a lot of room to do or to develop something like a platform that we can actually put some of the students who just want to do certain things or whatever, instead of just sending them to a college where they don't want to be.
I was going to add that it is very staff intensive. And I was also going to say that traditionally, the price per person is very low per student. So that was something that, I remember having, a grant, and you have this amount and you got to serve big numbers. Then the numbers got smaller. It was harder to group people to do the work and maintain the staff. And in fact, with us, because of some of our fiscal situation at ECC, much of the staff that I had in the programs that were servicing those large, they're no longer here, because with grants ending, their contracts for work also ended. So it's something that I think about if we get approached by the county with a grant, that then hopefully I would have to staff up in order to be able to meet the demands, to just do the triage, because sometimes they're sent to us, and if it's a really large number, you almost have to do an intake assessment of the student to figure out what's best for them and see what the person's able to do. And so you start off with those, and then you get down to the for other folks that, despite all the interventions, they may not be having the abilities or capabilities, or have additional issues that need support. So for me, I think about, okay, how do I approach this? If the county came to me now and said, within, we want to have a contract with the college again, like we used to serve these people, I would have to, really, I would have to look at my staffing ability to be able to deal with that. So that's something that I think about, being able to deliver.
Yeah.
Aaron?
Yeah, Sherwood.
Hey, Sherwood.
So I find it interesting. So we have taken SNAP participants through our ESL and our ABE programs that we've contracted with our Workforce Development Board. But it's interesting, we don't at Atlantic Cape do those types of supported services. When the SNAP participant comes to us, they're referred into a program. So if they have babysitting issues that we discover, we reach back out to the One Stop for their staff to take care of that stuff. We don't take that on here. So for us, I mean, that's, every county is different. We don't take on those. We're educators. We don't take those on. They have people that are trained to do that, and that's what they're supposed to do. And the referral back and forth works very well. So we've done that for years. When COVID hit, as everyone mentioned, the participants are not required to participate. So we were asked to design a program, which we did. It's 100% online. We use Conover. We've broken it down. It's about 70 hours total that they should do. They get a hotel motel lodging certification for guest service gold. We've included that. They go through those basic, those basic modules. But what we do is we have 3 days a week where their success coach is available that they can come in if they want to get out of the house to work on their projects or whatever they want. And one day you'll go by, you'll see one student in there, and another day you'll go by, you'll see 8. So we've kind of, and it's all voluntary. So we actually now have 27 SNAP, and it's a mixture of SNAP. Well, it's all of those referrals. We don't have any specific just SNAP programs, but it's all voluntary, and they come in that way. So that's kind of what we're doing. We don't take on that heavy that my colleagues are talking about. That's a heavy lift. It's hard, and we work with our One Stop. We refer back. We'll pick up the phone if someone is in distress or needs something right away. But that's their thing. We let them do that, and we do the training. That's the difference that's the difference for us, really.
Yeah,
Yes,
so I'm
so-
hearing a couple of themes, so and then we'll go to Eve, but this issue of the need for consistent funding, consistent relationship, for adequate funding, and a need for very defined relationships between the college and the Board of Social Services or the One Stop to ensure that the services are being provided by the right person in a integrated way. Eve, did you add something?
Yeah. Yes, I was just going to say, I agree with Sherwood. We're in the same situation. We refer to the, Board of Social Services or TAS, or, sometimes the workforce development boards, they have different counselors, for GA and TANF and that. So we refer back. We don't do the supportive services. We are the training provider. We don't have the staffing to be able to, handle those types of situations. I do want to add, though, in the past when, working with these individual contracts, some workforce development boards have like a holdback. In other words, if they don't complete the program or the payment is based upon attendance. As everyone knows on this call, this group, tends to have attendance issues. So that's something that, as you're looking towards the budgetary or the planning part of that, if we're hiring a teacher to teach, something for that group in particular, we have to pay that teacher regardless of whether there's 1 student sitting there or there's 20 students sitting there. So that's something to be taken into consideration if this moves forward, that we're not penalized if the student doesn't attend. That's something that's been a problem in the past.
Thanks, Eve. Other thoughts on this topic of what else could we be doing?
Jake, I want to come back to the CCOG idea. I know this is kind of we're mostly non-credit here on this call, but are there things that we can do with CCOG? Now we know that unfortunately there's a good percentage of our population in New Jersey that are receiving SNAP benefits, many of whom are unemployed. And many of them may not just be the population I think that we've been talking about, which are people without basic skills or literacy ability or high school equivalency diplomas, but are there high school graduates out there without college degrees that we might be able to find a way to get into CCOG programs on the credit side with the right supports? I want to come back to Jake's question about that, if we could. Any thoughts about credit programs for SNAP E&T recipients?
I mean, having worked with the CCOG a little bit, this year because I sort of cross over between credit and non-credit and a little bit, I guess, of student affairs. At Essex, the folks we were working with, they were mostly, as you know, the RWJ employees that were hopefully taking this to be able to create pathways for themselves to earn more money. So we were looking at a little bit with CCOG, it's sort of a higher, because it's up to $65,000, right? And it might go higher than that. So it's a little bit different than the TANF clients that are already on welfare and, really lower. So I think when I was talking about sort of triaging, sometimes it's not so much all of the support, but just figuring out the right program for, having the conversation with the student to figure out where they fit. And so I don't know, I see how CCOG can help students who are coming and partially paying for themselves and then didn't qualify for additional benefits, and those who are incumbent workers or workers earning not a lot of money, and so therefore doing this to get themselves propelled. I think with our county, with the number of people who ended up on unemployment and everything else, I think we're going to have all kinds, mixed in there. Some people are going to need a little bit of training and maybe short term or just a resume update or some leads, and they'll get themselves into jobs. And then some of them might be interested in doing the financial aid and CCOG to get themselves into a different career. And then there's always going to be a pool that needs more hand holding, but I don't know if CCOG, I think they'll be my financial aid and my EOF students, because I also supervise EOF. So, and we see the EOF students struggled tremendously this year, despite all the efforts and the money that they were getting support of. It was really hard for them. They got hit hard because of housing situations and other things that came up for them during the pandemic. So normally our numbers for our EOF program would be so much higher than the regular institution. And this year they were really hit hard. So that's sort of my, because I sort of straddle a little bit of having supervised the branch campus and credit programs as well as non-credit, being more involved in academic affairs. This is what I've seen recently.
That's great. Thanks,
But
Elvie.
Aaron, wouldn't you say that CCOG, and I agree with you, CCOG seems to be the next on the ladder? Because if we can get them in through, with their SNAP benefits and get them involved in something. I mean, again, SNAP is looking to get them back into the workforce.
Right.
But once they get back into the workforce and they want to continue education, then the next best thing is for them to be eligible, not only, Elvie, what you were saying about financial aid, but for them to be eligible for CCOG, that guarantees that security for them. So I think
continuation
coming in is only the beginning. We have to look at it as what's the next step for the SNAP students also, or recipients. So.
Right, that it's really more of a pathway approach, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what, Jake will talk, we talked about this in Jake's presentation, SNAP E&T is a state and federal program, so the states have to put in money. So when you guys get SNAP E&T dollars to your local workforce boards, it's partially state money and partially federal money. I think the hope would be eventually, is there a way to use the SNAP, the CCOG state investment that goes to people receiving SNAP as a way to leverage additional federal funding for the SNAP E&T program? And then could that provide wraparound service supports to people in CCOG if they're SNAP E&T eligible? Yeah, a lot of potential and complexity, but this has been a really good discussion.
One thing too, with the the temporary expansions in SNAP eligibility, but then the expansions we have now in New Jersey, for students who receive services through all of you via SNAP E&T on the non-credit side, if we can onboard them to a credit program that is a Perkins eligible program, then they will continue to have SNAP eligibility. They wouldn't lose their SNAP eligibility once they complete the SNAP E&T portion on the non-credit side. They would continue to receive SNAP benefits as they continue their education.
Yes, but I think we've been talking about the the stackable credentials and
Right.
uncredited credit pathways. And I think that, I know that internally, this is where we need to put more effort here at our institution and made some headways with, I think support from definitely Dr. Boakye, our president, and the new appointed dean that was placed in January. So I think the possibility, and I think framing the conversation at the statewide that more colleges do it and we create some sort of pathways that are structured and kind of recognized by all community colleges and eventually maybe help, I think, a lot.
So I think, Jake, we've been here an hour. I think we scheduled
Yeah.
an hour and a half, but maybe we should talk about next steps and see if we can let people leave a little early if they've got busy
Sure.
things they want to do.
Yeah. Well, certainly, next steps is to develop a reference tool, a guidebook, guidelines of some way, shape, or form of those best practices that are already taking place at community colleges in New Jersey through the current structure and their partnerships with their local county agencies. Several of you shared some of these best practices, and please don't be surprised when I follow up to contact you one-on-one to get a little bit more information and put something in writing that we could create. So that's part one. That's low-hanging fruit. Aaron, part two?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be very helpful, Jake, and others, please chime in, if we put together a small work group of us and a couple of colleges represented who could really roll up our sleeves and see if we could draft a document to deliver to the Department of Human Services and the Labor Department with our best thinking of where we go from here, and to really dig in a little bit more on this third party idea. Now we're hoping to be selected to participate in the AACCT effort, and that may impact what we do next, but I wouldn't want us to not follow up on this if the AACCT initiative doesn't pan out from our perspective. So would there be some folks that'd be interested in having a couple of follow-up discussions and rolling up our sleeves and writing some things? I mean, we can do some writing, but we really need your help to make sure that whatever we put on paper is something that's relevant to the world that you all live in every day and the experiences that you've had. Elvie's volunteering. That's good.
Thank
That's
you,
good, Elvie. I bet Lisa would volunteer as well if we don't make her work too much. Okay, Lisa, thank you.
Camden would be in for it as well.
Oh, we got the trifecta. Thanks, Margot.
Ocean would too, even though we haven't done, too much lately with it, but helping you guys figure it out.
Thanks.
Yeah, that would be good to have a different perspective as well. And then we can broaden this. Lori's going to say something. Maybe she's going to volunteer too.
I don't really have that much to contribute since we haven't been doing it, but hey, I'll pitch in.
It's just like this is going to be a committee of everybody because we're going to have to get Janet involved from
Well, that's what I was going to say, either myself or I will delegate.
And we can't leave Atlantic Cape out. I don't know where Sherwood went, but he's got obviously a strong track record on this. Okay, so Jake and I'll put our heads together and think about how we structure this in a way that gets everybody involved, but also respects that you all have day jobs besides this. But I do think there's an opening here with the ACCT project in general, but to really kind of put our best foot forward with the state, particularly as they think about, where do we go now from this pandemic situation that we're hopefully getting out of soon. Any other suggestions on kind of next steps from anybody else in the group? Hey, Derek.
Hi, Derek.
Good afternoon, everyone. I actually got this invitation like through a third party. Somebody actually sent me an invitation to this meeting and I kind of crashed the party. And I'm glad to be here and to hear your discussion around SNAP ENT in New Jersey, which I've been trying to chip away at for the last 5 years. I serve as the regional analyst at USDA Food and Nutrition Service at the regional office. And my primary responsibility is to work with our state agency partners to broker relationships with organizations that could potentially serve as third-party partners and enhance service delivery to our constituents. New Jersey has been a very, very tough nut to crack, to say the least. I have been working at USDA now for about 5 years. and it has been a long journey with New Jersey. I have not gotten much traction whatsoever. Their third-party partnership program, the only thing I've seen was 2 organizations come on, and this was when I first started back in 2015, 2016. It was Blessed Ministries and Youth Build of Newark, and that happened through legislation and only through legislation. Yep. They got pressured by the Nicholson Foundation, made an investment, and so they kind of tied DHS's hands behind their back and forced them to do this. Since then, we have tried to get a third-party partnership program off of the ground. And I thought I was getting somewhere with the previous administration, and that administration was came to an end, and then a whole new set of people came in, and I had to start from square one again. My most recent conversations with DHS and DLWD is DHS really wants DLWD to be at the helm of the SNAP ENT third-party partnership program. They, meaning DHS, really feels like Department of Labor and Workforce Development has the expertise to do it better than they can. And so they want DLWD to own the administrative aspect of operating and administering the New Jersey's third-party partnership program. So one thing I do know is that there should be an RFP coming out in the very near future to solicit and try to identify organizations that could potentially serve as third-party partners and leverage our 50% reimbursement funds. So I've kind of went back and forth with DLWD on this. They were pretty much not in the dark, I would say, but kind of operating automatically and not really taking into consideration all the different moving parts of this program. Another thing I've done in trying to engage SNAP ENT in New Jersey is I was working with DOL ETA. They had these scaling apprenticeship grants. And those grants went to 2 community colleges in New Jersey. And one of the things we tried to do was just create referral pipelines from local offices to these community colleges. You would not believe how difficult that has been. I think I've been at it for about a year now, and we have not gotten any referrals. And I can't really understand it because the community colleges, that would be the community college of Morris County and I think Bergen County, they both have these special grants that came out of DOL ETA's discretionary side. Yep. So they need people for these training programs. The SNAP system has people that could benefit from these training programs, but we could not connect the dots to get people referred into these programs. So I'm completely frustrated, to say the least, with what's been going on in New Jersey. And anything we can do to try to move the needle on this thing in the Garden State, which I live in New Jersey. I am all for it. I'm glad that I came to this meeting because it seems like you folks really want to try to do something. One of the things that was said to me in the beginning when I first started USDA, and we were talking about New Jersey, and I was talking to somebody in my national office, is like sometimes you got to create a groundswell and come at the state from the ground level up to get them to move. And so we've been trying to apply pressure from the federal level, but I think it's organizations like this and consortiums like this that could really be helpful in really trying to get the state to make some movement in this. So anything I can do to support your efforts, I'm here to do that.
Derek, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you found your way to this phone call and that we didn't know you were here so that we could be honest without knowing that we had an insider.
Awesome.
But anything anybody said that was negative, we'll retract it from the record. But
you didn't say anything about the Fed, so I'm good.
Well, I think, Derek, I think you saw, even though none of us knew you were here, that how passionate and committed we are, as 18 community colleges, to doing more than our share of helping people move up and move along. And so I think Jake and I would love to have a follow-up conversation with you and really put our heads
Absolutely.
together on what more we can do, given your reflections on what you heard today and what we came up with. But yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah. And you know, one of the issues in New Jersey, one of the biggest issues is that they have a mandatory program. So I heard Margot talk about it being punitive. You know, people don't associate workforce development with SNAP as an opportunity. They associate it as something enforcement or something like Margot was saying that's punitive. If I don't get a job, I can't keep my SNAP benefits. You know, they're going to sanction me. They're going to cut me off from my benefits. They are not coming to the realization, or we're not being effective at the local level in communicating to the general public that there are opportunities out there available through this program. People are not aware of that. New Jersey is the last mandatory state in the Mid-Atlantic region, you know? And so, you know, when you look at the numbers of work registrants, you know, it's pretty significant. But then when you look at the number of people actually participating in the program, you know, that could be impressive too. But what is the quality of the program is where we're really going with this. You know, you could have thousands of people coming through your program, but if it's just churn, and that is what we're seeing is just churn. And somebody said it earlier, it's just a way for folks to meet their work requirement. Then what are we really doing for folks? Are we really providing an opportunity to move people towards self-sufficiency, which is really the overarching goal of SNAP ENT? And you know, community colleges are a natural partner for SNAP ENT. You know, we have a robust system in Pennsylvania. We have some community colleges in Maryland. I'm just speaking from a regional level. And I know your colleague, I know Aaron, I know your name because I see it on here, that your colleague that's also co-facilitating talked about Washington State, which is, you know, one of the best states when it comes to SNAP ENT and community colleges.
Yep.
And Oregon is right behind them, or is actually overtaking Washington State with their recent developments. So, you know, I've been on a mission to try to expand SNAP ENT and enhance services in the Garden State, but you know, it's been a long haul. It's been a long haul.
Well, Derek, I think we are all committed to try to do what we can to get New Jersey to leapfrog over Washington and Oregon someday, so that you can brag about New Jersey at the national level. We're all on board here in the community college world. So look forward to having a discussion with you and me and Jake about, you know, specifically what you think we can do next. But pleasantly surprised to have you here today, and thank you for joining us, and thanks for fighting for some good things, important things.
Yes, and just so you know, I think it was Chris Gillespie from Bergen Community College that said, "Hey, is this related to, you know, what we've been talking about?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And so I RSVP'd, and here I am. So I will put my email in the chat for you all. And you know, anything I can do, like I said, to assist with this, anything, you know, if I see an opportunity to bring you all in, I will do that as well.
Okay, so we've got some work to do, but Jake and I'll be in touch, and we'll talk, Derek, and then we'll compare some notes on where to go. And in the meantime, we'll get to work on mapping out some of the models that our colleges currently offer, and then work on a working group to do some work. Elvie, you've got a question, looks like.
Well, no, just a statement, Derek, when you mentioned BMI and Nicholson, that brings back a lot. We've worked with them, especially to serve, I think, our corrections student and halfway house reentry population, which is something we didn't discuss earlier, but definitely they benefit from this, because when they're coming out, they don't have anything when they're in halfway houses, and then they're making the transition back to the community. And BMI has been a really great partner for Essex. We've worked with them on a lot of it, and we've had reentry programs now at Essex, I think, for more than 16, 17 years. So
right, wow.
We saw some inroads with that, because we worked with the Nicholson, and you know, Mitra is working with Christine and that Bergen apprenticeship grant, and we're trying to funnel some people into that as well.
Right. So the other thing I will leave you with for New Jersey, it's like, New Jersey has like these elements that make it really difficult to have a great SNAP ENT program. It's mandatory. It's bifurcated, meaning our funds go to DHS, but then it's funneled over to DLWD. So you got to deal with 2 state agencies. And the third one is it's county administered. So there's a whole bunch of layers in there if you want to try to do anything in New Jersey that you have to deal with. That just makes it very, very cumbersome and difficult to get any movement.
Right. So in the end, Derek, you've got potentially 4 entities that are involved in all of this. You've got the State Human Services Department, the Board of Social Services at the county, you've got the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and you've got the workforce boards. And so every time that these discussions have happened historically, you get all 4 people in a room and it's impossible to, I think it makes a lot of sense, and what Human Services is relaying to you about having this be a workforce strategy with some expertise from labor makes some sense. But obviously the bureaucracy becomes even more complicated. But
right. So, I would say keep the eyes open. They are really close to putting out, DLWD is really close to putting out an RFP for third-party partner organizations.
Great. That's great. So we'll be ready to go for that. Thanks, Derek.
Awesome. Yep.
All right. Any final thoughts, Jake, or anybody else? Jake?
Yeah, I have
wanna
one
close us
final
out?
thought. We're ready to give you about 15 minutes back in your day, so thanks for joining us, everybody. But there's one request to get out of here. Please put your name and your email address in the chat so we can keep everybody updated as to next steps moving forward. Name and email address in the chat would be great. And then I'll hit the button so you folks can leave. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Look forward to working with you. This is really important work, and